The 2023 quarterback class is very weird. At the top, you have guys such as Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, who will more than likely be future franchise quarterbacks. After that, teams will take flyers on guys such as Hendon Hooker, Bo Nix, and Will Levis. And then there is what many NFL scouts are calling the wild card quarterback of this year's draft class, and that is Anthony Richardson. He was a big-time quarterback for Florida over the last 2 years, and in his first season as a starter, he was definitely up and down. Sometimes he would have incredible plays and incredible games, while other times he would disappear and look really far behind. Overall, the best way to describe Richardson is inconsistent, and just a couple days ago, he declared for the draft, and some NFL scouts came out and said that he is a 2-year project and should fall out of the first round. In today's video, we're going to talk about the rise of Anthony Richardson, go through who he is, the whole debate about him in this year's draft, and ultimately why I think he is making a huge mistake for his career. But before we get started, we're so close to 100K, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, turn on notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now, let's get started and talk about Anthony Richardson. We first need to go back in time and see how he got to this point. He was originally from the city of Miami, Florida, but at 10 years old, he would move to Gainesville. By his freshman year of high school, Richardson was already 6 foot tall and was dominating older competition on the basketball court and on the football field. He was ahead of schedule, and current Gator wide receiver Trent Whittemore had this to say. Quote, I think the first time we actually met was my sophomore year of high school, his freshman year playing East Side. He was at receiver, I believe. I was kind of like, who is this kid? He looked like he should probably be in college, and he was a freshman in high school making crazy plays. For obvious reasons, he continued to practice and develop and started to gain serious recruiting attention. As a junior, Richardson would pass for 1,567 yards with 17 touchdowns and 6 picks. He also rushed for nearly 1,000 yards on the ground and had 16 scores. He led his team to a 7-4 record, and that is why he was a huge name. He said, quote, my freshman year, I didn't really know about signing. Some people go to college and some people don't. Being here and looking back to where I was, it feels good. I finally made it to my dreams. That's why he decided to stay home and play for the Gators. He committed after their Friday Night Lights recruiting event, but some people thought that wouldn't happen. Many believed that Florida was going to go after recent Bama decommit Carson Beck, and Richardson decided he was going to explore other options too. It would not last long though, as Beck would go to Georgia and Jeff Sims would go to Georgia Tech. This meant that Richardson would re-sign with the Gators and was very excited for the opportunity. Being from Gainesville, he was excited to be the local legend. He said, quote, it's a blessing, not only because my family is super close and watched from just around the corner, but it's a blessing because I'm being a role model to the young people in this generation in Gainesville and letting them know that anything is possible and they can go anywhere they want to go. It's all a blessing, you know, I'm truly blessed. Both Florida fans and Anthony were happy that he would be arriving in Gainesville, and 24/7 Sports was really high on him. They ranked him as a 4-star recruit, the number 9 dual threat quarterback, and the 204th best player in the class of 2020. So, as someone who would need a little bit more polishing in his game, how would he end up doing at Florida, and would he pan out? Richardson would arrive as the 3rd-string quarterback behind Kyle Trask and Emory Jones. The Gators would have a terrific 2020 season, and Richardson would have a chance to play in 3 games. He run the ball 3 times against Missouri, had 2 plays against Arkansas, and then had 1 play which went for a touchdown against Oklahoma. He finished the year at 27 yards and 1 touchdown. Going into 2021, many fans were excited for a quarterback battle between Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. It ended up going down to the wire, but eventually Mullen would name Emory as the starting guy. At first, many were excited to see what Emory could do, but after he struggled, some thought it was time to turn to Richardson. Against USF, he would complete 3 of 3 passes for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then had 4 carries for 115 yards and another touchdown there. That's a ridiculous stat line, and every time Anthony Richardson touched the ball, it seemed he had a chance to take it the distance and would make this Florida offense so much more dynamic. But a common trend from Dan Mullen is he likes to stick with one quarterback. Richardson would only have 6 plays against Kentucky before he would throw an interception in a 42-0 loss to Vanderbilt. He'd get an opportunity to play in their road loss against LSU, and in that game, he passed for 167 yards with 3 touchdowns and had another score on the ground, but would have 2 costly turnovers, and they would lose 49-42. Richardson would also get a chance to play against Georgia, and he had 2 costly interceptions in that game and failed to score a touchdown. The final time he would play the remainder of the year was against Florida State, as in a 3-point victory, he'd throw for 1 touchdown. Richardson was a mixed bag as a redshirt freshman. Yeah, he of course had some highlight plays, but he also struggled with turnovers, and whenever he got time, he was not consistent enough to earn that starting job away from Emory. I'm not saying Jones was any good either. On the year, we finished with 529 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, and 5 picks. He'd also have 400 yards on the ground and 3 scores there. During the spring, it was announced that Emory Jones was going to transfer to Arizona State, so now the job was Anthony Richardson's. Yeah, technically there was a battle between him and Jack Miller, but that was settled pretty quickly, and new head coach Billy Napier wanted to see what Richardson could do and if he could be his guy. At the beginning of the year, there were a ton of mock drafts hyping him up, and some even had him as a first-round pick. This was clearly all based on potential and not actual stats so far, but how would he do when he actually took the field? Well, his first game, he'd be very impressive. Against number 7 Utah, he threw for 168 yards and then had over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He ended up having the game-winning score. The Florida offense looked great, and he had that it factor that every Florida fan has been waiting for. He'd lead them to an upset over number 7 Utah, and his Heisman hype started to soar. The following weekend, he'd be matched up with another big-time SEC quarterback in Will Levis. This was supposed to be one of the premier quarterback battles of the SEC this year, and neither quarterback was too impressive, and Richardson was not great at all. He went 14 of 35 for 143 yards and 2 interceptions. He obviously didn't play very well, and they lose by 10 points to Kentucky. One weekend later, Richardson would once again struggle. He went 10 of 18 for 112 yards and 2 picks against USF, and if it weren't for a botched snap, USF could have brought that game to overtime and may have upset them in the swamp. Luckily they'd win though, but 2 bad performances in a row were not looking good for Richardson. Things would not get any easier in week 4, as he'd now have to travel on the road to number 11 Tennessee. This was going to be his biggest challenge yet, and he was up for it. He threw for a career-high 453 yards with 2 touchdowns and also had 1 interception. It didn't stop there though, as he also had 62 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he literally put Florida on his back, put on a show on the road, and almost led them to a win. They would recover a late onside kick, and he'd have an opportunity to complete a Hail Mary, but as he was hit, it went short and it was intercepted. They'd lose 38-33, but the Anthony Richardson hype was back. Except it wouldn't last for that long. He'd go for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns and a win over Eastern Washington, and then had a horrible performance and a win over Missouri. In that game, he went 8 of 14 for 66 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Luckily, they still got the win, but then he would struggle against LSU and would struggle a lot against number 1 Georgia. While no one was going to hold the LSU and Georgia losses against him, those were 2 of the better defenses he played, and he didn't really do much. After that, he would bounce back with arguably his best game of the year, as he combined for 4 total touchdowns in a road victory over Texas A&M. Following that, Richardson would go for 3 touchdowns and a victory over South Carolina before he'd put a stain on his resume. While he did throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, Richardson and the Gators lost to Vanderbilt, which was definitely inexcusable to Florida fans and is going to be a major knock on his season. To finish the year, he'd play against Florida State, and that game was very weird. He completed only 33% of his passes, but he still managed to throw for 3 touchdowns in a close loss to the Seminoles. On the year, Richardson would throw for 2,549 yards with 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He also had over 600 yards on the ground with 9 scores there. He was wildly inconsistent, but he was never viewed as a college star and more so someone who could flourish at the next level. A couple days ago, Richardson declared for the 2023 NFL Draft, and just following that, we got some interesting news. NFL scouts are looking at him as a 2-year project player, which would definitely push him out of the first round. At this point, I've seen Richardson anywhere from the 2nd or 3rd round to the number 5 overall pick. It seems like no one really has a good read on Richardson, which is why ultimately I think he's making a huge mistake. While yes, he could be the 3rd quarterback taken in this year's draft, I think it would have been wise for him to come back for 1 more year, work on his skills, put up better numbers, become more consistent, and add more to his resume before declaring for the draft. Instead, right now, he could be an extreme boomer bust type player, and if he ends up going in the 2nd round, teams could give up on him pretty quickly, and he could wash out just like that. So yes, while on paper, Richardson could still go in the 1st round, and it wouldn't look like a horrible decision, I think for his long-term NFL future, it would have been much better for him to come back for 1 more season. Nevertheless though, I do like Richardson. He was fun to watch at Florida, and I hope he pans out at the next level. But what do you guys think? How will Anthony Richardson do in the NFL? Where do you think he's going to get drafted? And Florida fans, what is your take on him? Be sure to let me know down below. Let me know what 2023 NFL Draft prospect I could take a look at next. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.